Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad that you could join us today for Odysseeware's Leading Change webinar. Today we have a great lineup to present for you, and we're just really happy to have everyone join us today. Just a few housekeeping tips before we get started today. We will be recording today's session, and we will make sure that everyone has that recorded link in the this afternoon or in the morning so that you can share it or go back and review. We appreciate you sharing, and we also hope that the information is helpful. We also want to let everybody know that we will be taking questions through the chat panel or through the question and answer panel, either one, if you'd like to present a question to our presenter. It is a closed session today, so you won't be able to ask your question directly, but you can submit those questions through the Q&A or through the chat panel. We also want to encourage you to join us at odysseyware.com and follow, and also to participate with us on our Twitter chat as well. So we thank you so much for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started today. So today our session is around the high cost of behavior in the classroom, and we are pleased to have today Dr. Daniel Golchek to be able to present to us. Dr. Golchek is coming as a VP of Education and Research from Coy Education Group and has had lots of experience in the education space. We're so glad to have him today on the session. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Just a little bit about his history. Dr. Golchek has a passion to sharing good news about bad behavior and to build capacity with educators and to empower students to succeed. Education research, As a VP of Educational Research of Coy Education, he specializes in school-wide systems change, including positive behavior interventions and support, classroom and behavior management strategies, and leveraging technology to improve student behavior and academic achievement. He's got lots of experience helping and lots of information to share with us today. Just a quick reminder, if you do have questions, please submit those through the chat panel, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and pass over the presentation to you, Daniel, and we'll get so you can get started on presenting. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Let me get set up. We'll do the handoff. I'm glad so many people could attend today. We just want to ask if everyone could please make sure that you're muted so that we can reduce the beeps and the dings of people coming in and leaving. But as Michelle said, we definitely want to encourage a conversation. We really want to encourage a robust professional learning community to develop, whether through the Q&A and the chat panel or using the hashtag #OWLeadingChange and on Twitter, and by using @Odysseyware or @Coy Education or @Daniel Golchek, and we'll have those and we'll show those to you today. Just to give you a little bit more background about myself, I come from the classroom. I'm a classroom teacher, was in the classroom for over 15 years, really focusing on special education as well, working with kids with really challenging behavioral needs. In addition to that, I've taught at 2 different universities, both helping with undergrads as well as teaching graduate students and graduate teachers to really improve their teaching, learning, and classroom management. Every day I'm a trainer, coach, working on educational leadership, behavioral change in school, with our goal here at Coy Education to really help schools and teachers and administrators improve the learning environment by making school more positive, predictable, equitable, and safe. And that's going to be our focus today. We're going to be looking at the high cost of bad behavior, how it impacts us, and what we can do about it. In addition to those roles, I also direct our statewide positive behavior support advisory and leadership team. I'm an author and speaker, and I'm a dad. I have 2 fantastic daughters, and I'm just really blessed to be a father as well. So let's go ahead and jump in. We have 3 objectives today. 1, talking about the cost of bad behavior. Is there anybody that doesn't already know that cost? I'm guessing not. All of us have experienced it. That's why we're here. But we really want to know, what can we do about it? And that's where objective 2 and 3 really come in. We're going to be focusing on the benefits of a positive behavior support system and 4 great steps that great schools can take right now. At the bottom of this slide, you can see the hashtag. So if Twitter is one of your professional learning communities and you use it for that, I encourage you to tweet us using the hashtag OWLeadingChange. You can also tweet at Odysseyware or at Koi Education or even at Daniel Gulchak. If you're few questions on my Twitter account. So you can use all of those Twitter accounts and definitely use the hashtag OWLeadingChange so that we can all find each other. Well, let's jump in and talk about bad behavior, shall we? I really want to make that direct connection between behavior and achievement. Here are the facts. This is what we know. Disruptive behavior decreases learning for the whole classroom. I don't think anybody on this webinar will argue with that. Teachers are interrupted by bad behavior, and that reduces academic engaged time of all students. Again, we can't argue. Finally, we know that school climate and safety diminishes in the eyes of staff, students, and parents when we have disruptive behaviors. So let's look at each one of those statements separately. First, let's talk about office referrals, and I want to define that. By office referrals, I'm talking about any time the student is removed from the classroom. Whether it's a timeout, whether it's the buddy room, whether it's go sit over there and do a reflection, or whether it's go see a leading teacher or the principal or whatever. If the kids are out of the classroom, that impacts their learning. Now, so let's just take this example, and everybody can see it on screen. Hopefully you've had a chance to download the handout so that you can take notes while we're doing this presentation. And that handout is available on the Odysseyware blog. You can go ahead and surf over there right now if you'd like and continue to listen. But let's take an example of 10 office referrals per day, or just 10 referrals, 10 disruptions in a school. You multiply that times an average of 180 school days across this nation, and that's 1,800 referrals a year. Let's say, for instance, that it takes the administrators 30 minutes to deal with that and get the kid back, or the student is just out or disengaged for 30 minutes by the time they get out and by the time they get back on task. We're talking 5,400 minutes in a school year. You divide that by 60, divide that to maybe 5 learning hours in a school day. School days are maybe 6-ish hours long. Take away lunch, take away recess, take away transitions, and you're talking about missing 180 days of teaching and learning, 180 days of administrator time, and that's if there are only 10 disruptions a day in your school. Can you imagine how much bad behavior is robbing the learning and achievement in your school? Let's look at suspensions. Many schools are still suspending students again and again. Let's take an example of if your school had 10 suspensions a month. We're talking 100 suspensions a year. That's going to take you at least 40 minutes to do the paperwork. The kids are going to be out of class for the whole day at least, if not more, as well as that time where they're missing from the class from the immediate incident. Again, you divide that by 60 minutes, you divide that by 5 hours in a school day, and you're talking about 100 days minimum, plus 13 days of teaching, 113 days of learning, 13 days of administrator time. I'm not going to tell you that suspension is never necessary, because it is. There are times when kids egregiously interrupt the learning of others or the safety of others, more importantly. And suspensions do have to happen on some occasions. But as an intervention, does it teach anything? Do the kids learn anything? Do they come back smarter? Nah, not so much, not at all. Finally, let's talk about academic engaged time, AET. You and I both know that's a big, big deal. In fact, it's the biggest predictor of academic achievement. Real simple formula: more academic engaged time, more learning. Less academic engaged time due to disruptions, due to the kids being out of class, you've got less learning, you've got less achievement. Teachers, we can impact academic engaged time directly through our classroom management, through different teacher-mediated strategies that are a part of our profession, part of the evidence base of the profession of teaching, and through high-quality instruction. So we can directly increase and impact student achievement. But we can only do that by increasing academic engaged time, and quite frankly, bad behavior takes that away from us. It robs us and it robs our students. Finally, let's look at climate and safety. This is also something that we can measure through parent surveys, through teacher surveys, through student surveys. I've put up a couple of quotes that I've come across in the surveys that we've done with the hundreds of schools that we're working with here in America and internationally as well. We provide a lot of training in Australia, as well as back here at home in the good old US of A. In these comments, these are fairly typical, and these are absolutely comments and a culture that we can impact and we can change. And we need to change to be a highly effective school. So here's my first question, folks. I encourage you to tweet. I encourage you to put your answer in the chat and the Q&A. I want to know, how does suit you or your school? Michelle is going to read some of those answers to me. Yes, I am waiting for actual interaction. This is that whole academic engaged time. It works for adults too, right? Any comments that you wanted to share with the group? Well, then at this time, I'm going to go on. In case you don't know, or you might forget how to access your chat, at the very top of the screen, you can see a little green pull-down tab. And if you click on the Q&A or the More to get the chat, you can actually type in, a little box will appear on your screen, and you can type in your questions, your comments. I encourage you to be doing that continuously while I'm talking. If I say something that interests you, or that you agree with, or that you disagree with, please go ahead and share that with everybody so that we can use that as part of the conversation. I'm going to continue to move on. So we know it's not just disruptive for the teacher. It doesn't just impact our school climate and culture, but the biggest problem is that it robs our students of learning. It decreases student achievement school-wide. So it's something that we absolutely want to impact. One evidence-based practice that's used across the nation that is phenomenal is using a system called positive behavior supports, PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports. If you've heard about it, go ahead and comment and say, yep, I know about it, I've heard about it, I know a lot about it, or hey, I haven't heard about it, tell me more. Go ahead and add your comments now, and I'm gonna keep moving forward. Here's one thing that I want you to write down on a piece of paper, on the palm of your hand, on your computer, right on the wall. But this is the point. This is one of the biggest takeaways. Positive behavior supports leads to measurable student outcomes. So I want you to go ahead and write that down and commit it to memory, because that's the takeaway. At the end of all of this talking, at the end of all of this learning that we're doing together, I want you to be able to tell people that PBIS leads to measurable student outcomes. And that's why it's different than other things that we do in school. A lot of times we're really focused on measuring effort. Well, we tried real hard. Well, we spent a lot of time on it. Well, I really like it and it feels good. And those are all really, really great things. However, in America, in this day and age, we need to be able to demonstrate measurable improvement, measurable outcomes. PBIS does that. Let me show you how. Number one, PBIS is a proactive solution. That means that we are getting ahead of the game, getting ahead of our students, getting ahead of our teachers and staff, and we're being proactive as opposed to being reactive. We are being positive as opposed to being punitive. We're doing everything that we aspire to be as an educational institution, and it's not new. PBIS, as a system, has been around for over 15 nation, this shows you the trajectory. This positive behavior support system is based on a lot of the principles and the science of positive behavior support, applied behavioral analysis. And that research, that effectiveness dates back. It may be really hard to read these states, but they're in alphabetical order, starting with Alabama and going all the way to West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. So you can find your state here. This is data that's just a year or two old, but it shows you the implementation of PBIS systems by state. And we can see Florida, Illinois, Wisconsin, North Carolina. We have some states that are doing a fantastic job of impacting learning by implementing a positive behavior support system. We've got a lot of other states where there are fantastic schools doing great work. It's just not statewide yet, but we're getting there. Here's another nugget. PBIS is federally mandated. In fact, it's been federally mandated since 1997, where special education law was the first law in the nation that said that for students whose behavior impacts their learning or the learning of others, schools must implement positive behavior interventions and supports. That's really the first time those four words were put together. No Child Left Behind in 2001 under President Bush also supported that requirement, not directly talking about PBIS, but requiring federally that schools, teachers, administrators, principals, that we use scientific and evidence-based practices. PBIS fits squarely into that camp. If you're interested in the research and evidence-based, I encourage you to go to the national website, which is pbis.org. You can contact me. I'll send you a list of all the research, both single subject design, school design, designs that go across the states, as well as the gold standard, and that's randomized control trials. Plenty of randomized control trials in using a systematic approach for impacting disruptive behavior. ESEA, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, continues that results-driven accountability model. This isn't going to change anytime soon. We're not going to see America go back to say, just do whatever. We're definitely on the track for using scientifically proven practices in education. That's a good thing. The other thing to know about a positive behavior system is that it is truly a system. It's not one thing. It's not posters, it's not prizes, it's not one thing. It's a multi-tiered system of support. Many of our best schools in the nation already use a multi-tiered system of support to support schools and students academically. Let me give you an example. In school, we all know and we strive to provide high-quality teaching, high-quality instruction. That's primary prevention. All of our students get high-quality instruction. Most of them will succeed. Some of them will need high-quality instruction plus secondary prevention. Maybe that's small group reading intervention. Maybe that's an after-school math club for some kids. Some of those kids will also need tertiary prevention. High-quality instruction plus maybe small group reading or after-school math club plus maybe direct tutoring on algebra or on trigonometry or on statistics. So that's what a multi-tiered system of support looks like academically. Behaviorally, we have the same thing. In just a minute, I'm going to show you what a primary prevention system looks like for behavior support to really decrease bad behaviors for all of our students. That's tier one. And it's going to help most of our kids. 80 to 90%, in fact, is what the average is across the nation. That's pretty phenomenal. I don't know if anybody can name one thing, and I encourage you to please name it in the questions and answers and in the chat. Name one other intervention that you can do in schools that can positively impact 90% of your kids, that works for almost everybody. If you have those other ideas, please let us know. I'm sure everybody wants to know. I'm guessing there's a couple of things out there, and that's why we have this huge community of practice, and we have all of you experts on the line as well. So please let us know and share that information. So I'm going to talk about that primary prevention, what we can do to decrease disruptive behavior for all kids but some of our kids will still need some secondary prevention. That's where Tier 2 PBIS comes in. All kids get primary. Some kids are going to need a check-in, check-out, or maybe it's an anger management group, or maybe it's some additional bully prevention. That's Tier 2. Some of those students will need your school-wide positive behavior support system, plus small group behavior support programs, and some kids might need additional individualized supports, tertiary prevention, such as a functional behavioral assessment, behavior intervention plan. So we can really reduce the number of individual students that need intensive supports by having a strong base to our triangle. Again, I want to encourage people, use the hashtag where at coeducation, at Daniel Gulchak, use the chats. But we want to keep on talking about how positive behavior support can impact bad behavior. Here's two ways. One is that it will measurably increase everything that you see on the screen. Three ways specifically are increasing student achievement. We can measure that through curriculum-based measures. We can measure that through state achievement tests, through Common Core state tests that most states are offering. We can measure school safety and school equity. We can do that through surveys. And we can measure staff, student, and parent satisfaction, also through surveys or through questionnaires. Here's something else that we can measure, a decrease in things that we don't want. We can directly measure a decrease in disruptions to learning, a decrease in office referrals or kids being sent out of school, and a decrease in suspensions. We can count those. We can count those going down. And we can also count a decrease in bullying, violence, disrespect, defiance, disruption, everything you see on here and more. And again, that's also something that we can count, we can measure. You can take that back to your teachers, you can take it back to your parents, you can take it back to your school board members and your legislatures and say, look what we're doing here. Look what our school is achieving. And all of this is directly leading to increased student achievement. And that's why we say positive behavior supports a system. It's system, data, and practices all coming together to decrease disruptive behaviors, decrease referrals, increase achievement, improve school climate, safety, and equity. And all of those outcomes are measurable. So let me show you how. So these are just some of the ways that you'll be able, when using a PBIS system, to measure impact, to measure disruptive behavior, and decide where that disruptive behavior is happening, whether it's the time of day, whether it's the location, which violation and which specific student is having which problem. And that helps you target and work smarter, not harder, to target the problems and the location and the time where problems are happening. So positive behavior support system helps us make data-informed decision-making, and we can all use that. Check this out. This is looking at just one state across a 5-year time span, and we can look at a measurable decrease in office referrals. Some of these bars, as you can see, are 102, 162 schools are represented. On the left of your screen, you can see schools that are implementing positive behavior supports with low fidelity. That means they're kind of sort of doing some parts and pieces. That's good. And what we can see is that over the course of 5 years, their office referrals kept on getting lower and lower and lower. It just keeps on getting better every year. Schools with high fidelity, schools that were implementing all parts of PBIS saw dramatic reductions in their office referrals, not just the first year, but it got better the second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, and it kept on going. We see that same trend with suspensions. Again, we can see a huge decrease in suspensions in schools that are implementing even parts of PBIS, but a much, much better impact with schools that are implementing PBIS with a high level of fidelity and integrity. That last bar on the extreme right of the screen, shows that they only had, on average, across 162 schools, an average of 25 suspensions per 100 students. across the whole year. That's fantastic. And some of these are going to be really large high schools of 2,000 and 3,000 students or more. And that may be a lot larger than some of your schools, but it gives us an indication. If it works there, my goodness, is it going to be fantastic in our school. Of course, we've got data on academic achievement as well. This is just one school, one example across 3 years, but we can see that correlation between implementing positive supports and the impact on state testing and student achievement. Here's something else that many people don't think about. Positive behavior supports also impacts the learning of our students with the most disabilities. And it not only decreases the students that are referred for testing for extra services, but it also decreases the number of students who are actually identified as needing extra special education supports and services. This, our administrators will see this as, oh my goodness, that's a huge cost savings. Our teachers are going to look at this and say, hey, that's fantastic. Our students are being supported in the classroom by the strategies that I'm using, by my leadership, by my professional experience. So now it's time for us to go back to the Q&A and to the chat. And I'm going to ask Michelle to read those off to me so that I can answer. I've also posted another question on your screen. Michelle? I see there is a question from Elizabeth in the, is that the Q&A? Oh no, sorry, that is the Q&A. Elizabeth, thank you. Elizabeth asked, how do you get a principal on board who may want to keep the current non-PBIS program in place to switch to a PBIS system? I'd say there's 3 ways to go about doing that. The first 2 are either going through the head or going through the heart. If you want to go through the head, you can share data. You can share this data that I've currently showed you. If you want to go through the heart, you can go back and talk about some of those quotes. You can look at the quotes from other educators and administrators. You can look at your teacher and parent satisfaction surveys and look at what they're saying is a concern in the school, be it bullying, be it classroom disruptions. Talk to your teachers. So those are 2 ways. The other way is just to look at your current school data. How many disruptions do you have? What are your office referrals count? How many suspensions do you have? If you don't currently have a system where teachers are sending students to the office, how are you measuring the amount of disruption in the classroom? Because that directly impacts academic engaged time. A principal award is you just ask them questions. And again, go through the head or go through the heart are two ideas. Another question I see is from Shaquila Mallory. Thank you. What strategies are you using for PBIS for a Title I school? Can you give some examples? Shaquila, I'm going to ask you to stick around because we're going to be covering that, strategies, just a minute. As soon as we get done this Q&A, we're going to jump into that. So Shaquila, stick around. We got you covered.
And we do have some great responses.
Michelle,
I don't know if you saw those or not, but that it brings teachers and students closer together for positive relationships.
Excellent.
And then
I see Donna mentioned that. Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say Donna also mentioned that there's differences in the environment and better classroom management and school-wide implementation that builds a team.
Absolutely. It builds teams, it builds that collaboration, and it really positively impacts your climate of your schools. Your teachers feel more effective, they feel more connected. Your parents are going to have a better relationship with the schools, with the principals, and that's going to keep them coming to you. That's going to keep them engaged, keep them part of your school community. Thanks, Shaquila. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. All right, so I'm going to ask you to keep those questions coming in, and I'm going to go ahead and jump on to the final segment of the presentation. So let's talk about 4 steps to great schools. I want to talk to you now about the 4 parts in a very, there's more than 4 parts, but I want to share 4 parts of a positive behavior support system at the Tier 1 level. It's really simple, folks, and here it is. With PBIS, your school community creates expectations. Your school community teaches those expectations. Your school community reinforces those expectations, and just as important, your school community holds kids accountable to your school-wide expectations predictably, consistently, and equitably. That's it. There is more to it than that, and of course, you know, we can teach you all of those steps and procedures. There's about 12 different parts that this breaks down into. But I want to take some time to show you some examples and show you what this looks like. And again, if you want to see a video of what positive behavior support looks like across elementary schools and high schools, go ahead and email or tweet me, especially using that hashtag #OWLeadingChange, and I'll go ahead and post a link to a video that's freely available. It's on Vimeo, produced by the National Center on Positive Behavior Supports, to give you an idea, to give your principals and teachers an idea about what Tier 1 PBIS looks like in the classroom. Now remember, we're talking about a multi-tiered system. This is just the bottom of the triangle, the base for everybody. The ownership really comes from all staff. It can't be the administrator creating the expectations. It can't just be a small group of teachers. It can't be an outside expert like me coming in and saying, oh, these are the best expectations. This comes from you. This comes from your school, from your staff, from your students, as well as from your community. If it doesn't come from your community, if you don't get the ownership when you're creating these expectations, you're not going to have the fidelity when you actually roll this out to your staff. People are going to feel this too shall pass. People are going to call it their expectations, that guy's expectations. This comes from you. Every school expectations are going to be a little bit different because they're going to reflect your culture, your climate, and what you want for your students, the values that are important at your school. And that's why we say you need to choose the expectations that reflect your culture. What do you value in your school? Do you value safety, responsibility, students being respectful? Here's a Wordle that looks at PBIS expectations at schools across the nation. If anybody's used Wordle before, you know that this is kind of a frequency graph. The words that are bigger are expectations that appear more frequently in schools across the country. From this Wordle, we can see that words like, or values like respect or being respectful, responsibility and being responsible are really highly valued. But there's a lot of different values out there. Trustworthiness, citizenship, being organized, achievement, working together, kindness, courtesy, integrity, caring, optimism. Who decides? You decide. Here's one example of a high school that posts their expectations right in the front office. Here's another little example. School, and they're in a rural area of our state, but their expectations are Rams, because that's their mascot, that's their logo, and their expectations are being responsible, accountable, having mutual respect, and safety. Here are some other examples, and as you can see, this doesn't need to cost you money. This doesn't have to cost a lot of money to print metal posters or big fancy banners. You can have your art department or every classroom in the school get some butcher paper and paint the walls or paint some posters. But again, the first step is having that school-wide vote, having that discussion about what values, what traits are important to your community. Second step, a critical one, you got to teach. Teachers, we all know this. We already teach reading, we teach writing, we teach math, we teach chemistry, we teach algebra. We don't expect the kids to know how to do those things. So why do we expect them to behave? That's like saying that you expect everybody that comes over to your house for Christmas, Easter, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa to know how to behave in your home. Really? Now you and I both know that there's that one uncle or cousin, maybe it's a mother-in-law or father-in-law, that don't meet your expectations in your home. Come on, admit it. I know it's true in my family. So the point is that we all have different expectations. It's not that our kids don't know how to be respectful in the home. They don't take responsibility in the home, so they don't know how to do it in school. There is no common denominator. It's different in every home across this great nation, and it's different in every classroom, even within a school. So let's do something simple. Let's teach all of our kids 3 or 4 expectations in our school so they all know how to be successful in every classroom. Can you imagine if every teacher, how easy it would make for kids to actually meet our expectations? Take a look at some examples. It's not only picking great words like respect and responsibility or trustworthiness, but we have to define what that looks like in different areas in the school. What you're looking at in front of you is an example from a high school. This comes to us from Cienega High School. Connections, high standards, and success are what they chose as their expectations, and they defined and they're going to teach what that looks like in the hallway. Enjoy using your cell phones during lunch breaks only. Okay, so what are you going to teach kids? You're going to teach them not to use cell phones in the classroom. You're going to teach them not to use cell phones when a teacher is teaching, but they can use it in the hallway during lunch breaks. High standards. One of the expectations that you're going to teach kids, how do they meet high standards? Well, it means using courteous actions and language. What does that mean? Probably means keeping your hands to yourself, no fighting. It probably means not using profanity. It probably means not putting down other kids. Bullying, cyberbullying fits into courteous language. So we have to teach that. And then when we see kids not being courteous with their actions or language, we can call them on it. And in fact, we must call them on it. We must hold them accountable to that expectation and to high standards. Hold them accountable to being connected and having connections by using their cell phones at breaks. That's part of our responsibility as adults. If we don't meet our responsibilities, well, we can't really blame the kids now, can we? Here's another example. This is another school, and this just happens to be an alternative school for students with really severe disruptive behaviors. It's the alternative school for a high school district for a large urban metropolitan area. Their school has 3 expectations: teamwork, accountability, and respect. And they defined what that looks like not only in the hallways, not only in the cafeteria or their recess and common areas, but most importantly, in their classrooms. All teachers have the same expectations in the classrooms. All teachers teach these expectations. It makes it a lot easier for your kids to succeed. Here's some examples from hallways, from bathrooms. And again, this has to come from you. If you're looking for examples of expectations and of those rules and behaviors that are really common, you may have noticed that all of these rules are stated positively. We want to teach kids what to do, not what not to do. No loitering, no talking back, no profanity. That's kind of like teaching, okay, kids, 2 plus 2, it's not 17, it's not 34, it's not blue toothpaste, what's the answer? We don't teach academics or trigonometry that way. Let's not teach behavior that way. Let's tell kids what we want. Let's teach them what we want. When we're redirecting students, let's redirect them to these positive expectations. For a list of positive expectations that you might want to grab, I encourage you to go ahead and jump on the COI Education website. It's koi-education.com. And if you click on our resources tab, we've got a ton of free resources. Now check this out. You're going to be really amazed by this. We're talking about teaching expectations. So on that resources page, if you go down to the teaching tab, you're going to find all of these examples from the teaching tab. If you scroll down to the expectation tab, you're going to find some samples and some posters of expectations. We really try to make it easy for people to get the free resources they need to succeed. Number 3, for all of you that are following along, we talked about creating expectations, teaching expectations. Now let's talk about reinforcing expectations. A lot of people equate reinforcement with rewards. And sometimes people don't like to reward kids for good behavior. I really, really want to make a distinction that there's a difference between a reinforcement and a reward. Rewards are given to people. They're given to the girl who turned 16 and she has a big 16th birthday party. It's not because of her behavior. She's rewarded simply because she's turning 16. Rewards are given to movie stars like Lindsay Lohan, who keeps on getting out of court time and court appearances and community services because she's a star, not because of her bad behavior and not complying with court orders, but because she's a movie star. Those are rewards. Reinforcement is what you're already doing in your classroom every single day. You acknowledge kids for correct academic work. How do you acknowledge them? With a wink, with a nod, with a high five, with an attaboy, with a thumbs up, and also with an A or a B or a C, right? Do kids get A's for everything they turn in? I certainly hope not. I'm hoping that they're getting A's when they demonstrate all the correct behaviors that you want on that worksheet or that test. If they demonstrate some of the correct behavior, well, you're going to reinforce them with a B or a C, depending what they earned. Behavior is the same way. We're acknowledging kids and reinforcing students when they demonstrate the behaviors that they want, when they're demonstrating by being respectful by using courteous language, when they're being responsible by bringing in their homework or being in class on time. So how can we reinforce students? A simple ticket works really well. You can print up a little business card like Marana did with their expectations. This is a large high school with 3,000 students, and they teach their kids to be here, be on time, be respectful, responsible, and safe. Or you can print up some tickets on your computer, run it off on paper, and cut it out so that every staff in school has a Pause for Success ticket. And you can acknowledge kids with those tickets. You can post them on the wall, you can hand it out to kids, you can send it home. When we teach schools to implement a positive behavior support system, we teach schools to have a 4-part system. You can see all 4 parts and have a template so you can do this on your own, again, on our resources page, koiyeducation.com, go to resources. You can also tweet me or use the hashtag #OWLeadingChange, and I'll respond and share that with you. Finally, last but certainly not least, we also need to hold kids and students and adults accountable to our expectations, and that's one of the biggest things. One of the biggest misconceptions about bad behavior is that if we just put up some posters or give kids prizes, that's going to change behavior. It won't. We need to hold kids accountable to the expectations after we teach and reinforce them. So one of my questions is your discipline practices consistent across all staff? Is it predictable and is it equitable? My guess is that it's not as consistent, predictable, and equitable as you may want. One way that you can change that is through a behavior flowchart. Again, our resources page has many examples and a template. I know it kind of looks complex, but I want you just to focus on the middle white. One of the first discussions you need to have with your staff is to agree what's minor, what's major. What's minor and is handled by staff in the classroom, in the cafeteria, on the playground. And if you look on the left, you'll see those blue boxes, and this is one school's examples of how to handle minor behaviors. All staff, the first thing they do is they just verbally redirect the student. All right, you're using your cell phones, please show high standards by using your cell phones at break. If it happens again, they reteach the appropriate behavior. Hey guys, remember in our school, high standards is using cell phones at break. See, it's on the poster, this is how we do it, let's practice. What happens if it happens again? Third and fourth intervention until eventually it's written up. It's an office referral, and then it's handled by your administrator, There are some things in school that need to go straight to the office. whether it's bullying, plagiarism, fighting, gang behaviors, threats and intimidations. Those are non-negotiables. We don't want our teachers handling that. We need to know about that at an administrative level. The first discussion you have to have is what's minor, what's major in our school, and decide so that all of your staff are on the same page. So, as a quick summary, I want to review what we've talked about today. We've talked about the high cost of bad behavior and how bad behavior directly impacts student learning, teacher teaching, and school climate and safety. We've talked about the many benefits of a positive behavior support system. Number one is that it produces measurable student outcomes. That's a big deal. I asked you to write that down or write it on your hand. I want you to take that away with you. And fourth, we talked about we talked about 4 steps to great schools. Create expectations, teach expectations, acknowledge expectations, and hold kids accountable. So you might be asking yourself, well, that's a lot. How can I do it, and how can I do it well the first time rather than trial and error approach? Well, I encourage you to come and talk to Odysseyware. They're a great leader, but also come talk to us. We have interactive iBooks on the iBook store available for your iPhone, for your iPad, and iMacs. I apologize to our Windows and our Android users. Interactive iBooks are only available on iPads. It's an Apple thing. These books are phenomenal. All of our books, if you go onto your iBook store through iTunes and through your mobile device, if you just search for Koi Education or search for my name, you'll be able to find these books and download free samples, and you'll be able to see what I mean by interactive. There's videos, there's handouts, and everything's embedded. It's magic. It is so fun, really. We also have hard books too, and those hard copy books are available on our website, and I'm going to show you where to get those. Second is that we really recommend an interdisciplinary approach to training your school, your staff, your district, your community on positive behavior support. Yes, there's going to be some staff development and some professional development that's needed, but we'll tell you what really works. It's everything else that we offer. We offer coaching, technical assistance, site visits, social media integration, PLCs, you name it, we got it covered, but we're there to support schools. If you're interested in more of that, you can talk. Like I said before, we have plenty of free resources on our website. The slide that's up in front of you shows our home page. If you click on that products and services, you can see everything that we offer. Most important, though, are the iBooks. There's an order form on that site. There's also a link to the digital copies in your iTunes stores. Really, really easy to do that. Our iBooks are available in 30 countries around the world if you're joining us from overseas. And of course, our world famous resources page, where there are tons of free resources for you, and they're all Creative Commons licensed, which means you can use them, you can share them, as long as you reference Koi Education as the original creator. But we like sharing with teachers. We're teachers, and that's what we do. So before, I'd like to ask this one more question. And that is, how would a positive behavior support system impact student achievement in your school? How is it going to impact your classroom? Go ahead and comment right now in the Q&A or the chat section, and you can also tweet us at Twitter. Michelle, are there any questions or comments for me to address?
Not right now, Daniel. It doesn't look like there's any specific questions that have come up. I think if you have questions, please submit them, and we'll be happy to share those with you. And maybe while we're doing that, I can share a little bit about, go ahead.
Absolutely, Michelle. Before I hand it back to Michelle, I just have one more question, or actually one more request of you. Having spent this hour with us, we really appreciate your time. We know how valuable it is. I want to make a request that will make this time that you spent with us even more valuable. And I want you to take action. I want you to write down on your handouts, on your hand, on your computer, on a piece of paper, one action, just one thing that you will do as a result of this webinar. Maybe that's going to be sharing this webinar or downloading the handout. Maybe it's going to be talking about positive behavior support with your principal. Maybe it's going to be going to the Odysseyware website or the COI website, looking around and seeing if there's anything that can help you do this in your classroom if your school's not ready. We're here to support you, but I want you to write down one thing. All the great leaders in the nation have told us that by writing down actions, by writing down our goals and intentions, we're more likely to take action. That's it for me. I'm going to turn it back to Michelle, who has some final closing comments. If you have questions, please tweet me, share me the information, but I'm going to go ahead and send this back to Michelle. I'm still online. I'll be reading your tweets and comments. Michelle?
Okay, and Daniel, it looks like there was a question. Now my questions have disappeared.
All right, I see Patrick had a hard time accessing some of the websites. Patrick, let us know if that's the Odysseyware website or if it's the COI website that's blocked for some reason at your school. Of course, you can always access that on your cell phone to kind of get around some of those things.
And Daniel, can you pass the controls back to me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought I did.
That's okay.
Yeah, I believe I'm off right now, Michelle. Are you able to take it back?
Yes, it's coming in. Thank you very much. Here it comes.
All right. Well, so just in these last 5-10 minutes, we have questions coming in. We're going to continue to looking at those questions. Michelle, I know you have some things to share.
Absolutely. So we wanted to let everyone know that we do have several other sessions that will be coming in as part of this Odysseyware Leading Change webinar series that Daniel's been doing. And in our next session will be November the 4th, and we'll be talking about behavior screening and academic solutions. And with that, we will also have someone, one of our participants joining from Odysseyware to really show how these things can happen within the Odysseyware solutions as well. And I just wanted to remind people where to find the information that you shared today. We will be sending out all of these slides, and you can also access them on the Odysseyware blog, so that'll be a good place for you to go. But really, in regards to Odysseyware and you know, our support within the schools is really the idea that we truly have so many different types of opportunities within our systems to also support. And we know that with students with, you know, as Daniel's talked a little bit about, you know, behavior concerns, a lot of it is about choice and a lot of it is about them having that flexibility within their schedules at times. And so Odysseyware is a perfect solution for those students. It's something that we can definitely, you can pull into your schools, give them that opportunity to work independently, work within groups, but get really good core curriculum and support services for that. So we see this relationship between, you know, behavior and PBIS and our solutions is something that we can support those teachers in those classrooms with some areas and things that will also help. So we ask that if you have any questions about those specific programs or any of our services that you reach out to us at odysseyware.com or contact us at the number on below the screen. Daniel, I just want to stop here and say thank you so much for your time today and just for your participation and sharing your expertise with the group. I saw lots of comments coming in that it was a very nice session, they enjoyed the webinar, and we hope that everyone will join us again. Really quick before we end, just want to make sure if there's any additional questions that have come in. Daniel, have you seen any other questions that we need to answer?
Sorry, Michelle, I just have to unmute myself.
That's okay.
I just unmuted myself. One of the questions that John just asked, and Katie also asked it in the chat, is what happens if we already do all of these things? What's next? Great question, John. My answer to that is that PBIS is a multi-tiered system of support. So what we'd ask you to do is do an evaluation as well. You can talk to me about that and just, again, email me at daniel@koyaeducation.com or use my @DanielGulchik on Twitter. But one of the things that you want to do is you can evaluate and self-assess using the PBIS apps. These are free national tools that are psychometrically valid and reliable so that you can ask the question empirically, are we really doing all these things? Because if you feel like it, that's awesome. But my question would be, have you asked empirically? Have you done some national PBIS evaluations to really truly answer the question, are we doing everything? So that would be my answer. If you want more information, tweet me or email me. And that was Katie as well.
Great, thank you. And in regards to, you know, how can you motivate those students that are lacking that type of motivation, Daniel, is that something that we'll be diving into a little bit in the next session, do you feel like?
Absolutely. We'll be diving into those in those continuing Odysseyware Leading Change webinars. So keep posted and come on back for more.
Great. And I would say one of the things that I would just let everyone know is there's a lot of great information on the Odysseyware blog. Please feel free to go there. There's some learning opportunities. But also, if you go to any of the areas that are shown up on the screen here, it'll really talk about how Odysseyware responds to interventions for students, how it impacts students with those special needs, and really how it can get to the heart of supporting, you know, all of your students within your classrooms. So we hope that you've enjoyed today's session. I want to thank you again, Daniel, and everyone who's joined this afternoon. And we just appreciate your time. We know it's precious, and we look forward to seeing you on the next session.